a Nintendo Direct has come and gone, which means it's time for the usual post-Direct discussion video thingy I do, where I just talk about the things that were announced, because a lot of these won't be news enough to make their own videos. So, let's go. We got some news on Splatoon's DLC, Side Order, and it is something where I did not initially come to this conclusion, but when I was discussing this with a friend after the Direct, how it's described in a way feels like a roguelike, which I'm all for. I have hundreds of hours in The Binding of Isaac alone, probably like 50 hours in Dead State, and at least like 20 in a bunch of other roguelikes. Because they described it as something where they want it to be really replayable. Hell, they directly called the main thing a Spire. Slay the Spire is a roguelike. There's a ton of customization from what it looks like, and it looks really fun. Genuinely, I'm really excited for Side Order. I think the single-player stuff in Splatoon is just better than the online stuff. Just a personal preference thing. I'm really excited. We still don't really know enough for me to comment enough on it. This really feels like they should have given us a proper release date for this thing. But like, hey, there's a ton, and I mean a ton of customization. It looks like it may be infinitely replayable, as it may be a roguelike, and it looks really fun. And also, if so, why does Nintendo keep adding roguelike modes to third entries in their game series via DLC? Now that we're on the topic of DLC, let's just get the Booster Course Pass out of the way. This is something I think we all knew it would show up. It has shown up in almost every Direct since it released. And the new characters are really interesting. I expected Funky, because he's basically the mascot of Mario Kart Wii, and Pauline, because she's been in a lot of Mario spin-offs lately since the release of Odyssey. But what I didn't expect was anyone else. Because the current roster has 2 blank slots in it for the DLC. How are they gonna fit Peachette and Diddy? And while we're here, we might as well talk about some of the other announcements where I have less to say about them, that I still have enough to say about them where it's worth talking. Specifically the 2, oh, this franchise isn't dead games? And I know that doesn't sound super positive, but honestly I assumed both of these games I'm about to talk about were for franchises Nintendo will never touch again. Then again, I'm a Pikmin fan and we were pleasantly surprised last September. But Mario plus Donkey Kong remake. Weirdly enough, another Mario remake. Weird. But I don't really care. I've never played the games in this franchise, so I can't comment too heavily. But I was never super interested in them to begin with. Like, obviously, if you're a fan of this series, that's great. Given, I know the first game is vastly different from literally everything else in the franchise, so even if you are a fan of this franchise, you're either getting a remake of the one game you like, or getting a remake of the one game you don't. The co-op looks existing and probably cheesable, let's be honest. And like, I don't know, I've just never had a desire to play these games. Wow, that was a longer section than I thought it would be. Anyway, the one that tricked me, F-Zero 99. When I initially saw this, I'm like, wait, F-Zero's already on NES, like on SNES Online. Why are they showing us this? What, are they making a new F-Zero? And then it's like, oh, okay, it's Tetris 99 again. Like, hey! New F-Zero game! Technically, the last one was in like 2001. So hey, cool. I don't really see a need. If anything, this feels like something that should more be a mode in the next F-Zero game that we will never get. Give up. I gave up on Pikmin, and that happened. Maybe if you give up, you'll get it. Also, before we continue, please consider leaving a like or subscribing to the channel since it helps out the channel a ton. Thanks. Anyway, on to the Princess Peach game. Now called Princess Peach Showtime. And I'm kind of mixed on this. The game doesn't look super amazing. It doesn't look bad, and it looks like it'll be something I enjoy. But then there's this. Sure love how the power-ups are world-specific. Like, imagine if you were playing Mario World. World 1, you can use the Fire Flower. Then once you leave that world, you can never use it again. World 2, Cape Feather. Same case for every world. As soon as you're done with that world, that power-up's gone. And that would also apply for Yoshi. Like, oh yeah, you get Yoshi for like 2 levels. I'm just describing New Super Mario Bros. At some point, aren't I? But, like, genuinely, the reality of this is it looks decent. I just don't like how they're handling power-ups. And, honestly, the game does not look amazing. It does not look horrible. It looks good. It's one of those games where somehow we know a lot about it, and this is normally where I would step off for trailers. But also, I feel like we don't know nearly enough. Basically, it's a game that will hopefully get a demo so people can actually decide if they're interested or not, just because of the variety of gameplay styles. I don't know, just throw in a few levels from each world or something. But there was one more thing I noticed while watching the trailer. Is it me, or does the final boss look straight out of Bolton Wonderworld? Anyway, there's one last thing I want to talk about. And seriously, this is just a game that exists, that I can't believe exists, that shouldn't exist, that other adjectives, and I'm talking about the Thousand Year Door remake. They are not calling it a remake. It is a remake. Genuinely, I was screaming. Like, my reaction was initially, because I didn't recognize the book immediately, was great, another Mario game, because we got like 3 new ones in this direct, we got like 4 new ones in the last direct, like, oh great, another Mario game. Then I realized what this was. And I'm gonna be honest, I was going to talk about Pokemon next week. I think I'm making a Paper Mario video instead. I care a lot more about this than the teal mask. So instead of talking about it like I normally would, I'm just going to talk about some really surface level things so I can make a video on it. I'll be honest, genuinely, if I did talk about it in depth, this video would be like 20 minutes long and more than half of it would be about Paper Mario. And I'm sure it makes no context to you when I say Arlo. But in July of 2019, Arlo, Blue Muppet, really great content creator. Basically everyone thought about it when Pikmin got announced. That guy. He made a petition for Paper Mario Thousand Year Door Remaster back in 2019. And, we're getting a remake. Did Nintendo actually listen? And that's not all. This remake looks freaking gorgeous. Like, when I saw some of the shots from some of the chapters, because this trailer shows some actually pretty late stuff. It's actually weird how willing it is. But it also might just be a you notice spoilers if you know they're spoilers sort of deal. But there's a few things I want to mention about the graphics. 1. Characters. I know that sounds weird, but you can like see seams and overlap on characters like Mario and Peach. Like where there'd be a separate layer of paper for their arms, for their hands. And it looks amazing. And secondly, the lighting engine. The lighting of this game does not feel like a Switch game. Like, how this game looks does not look like a game that will run on the Nintendo Switch. And I mean that in the best way possible. Because we are talking about a fantastic game that I think may be my favorite game in the entire Mario series. You know, that and the fact that if this game does well, Nintendo might realize that we want a more traditional Paper Mario game again, instead of another sticker star.